Hey guys, hope you're doing well. In this video, I wanted to talk about something a little bit different. I wanted to shift the gear a little bit and actually kind of not talk about just specific TikTok creatives, TikTok ads or campaigns, but rather talk about the bigger picture, whether that is e-commerce, building a brand, or just overall D2C, 0 to 1 playbook that brands and business owners that, especially when they first start off building a brand from scratch, what are some of the things they should focus on? What are some of the steps they should pay attention to when they begin this journey? And I think the reason why I wanted to touch on this topic is really what I noticed and realized is a lack of real brand talk in terms of real brand owners and builders, operators talk about what it takes and what are some of the things that they need to learn in order to go from that 0 to 1, because this is the most important phase for any businesses, because when you have an idea and the execution that really takes that idea from just a concept in your mind to an actual running business is super super hard and challenging, and there are so much value and lessons that can be learned from people that have were able to manage to go from that 0 to 1 phase. At Star Talk Social, at our agency, although we only work with brands and businesses that are doing 400K per month and plus, which kind of falls in between the 3 to 10 million or even 10 million and above range, after being talking to operators, business owners, and really learning and reading about people's insights and knowledge online, I was able to learn a lot of their lessons and along the way. So I think what I wanted to do in this video really just wanted to distill down a bit of like the nuggets I've learned along the way over the past 2 years, and just share that with business owners or entrepreneurs that are wanting to continuously to grow their brands to become a major or big player in the arena. So let's get started. So I like to call the first phase, which is, the phase where you really have like literally zero revenue, and how you were able to get from 0 to 1.5 million per year revenue for a store. This is really, a time period where nothing seems to be working. So this is really a stage where a lot of things can go wrong. So definitely you want to focus on the things that give you the most leverage. So here are the 3 to 4 things that I think you need to definitely focus on. Number one is just focus on the product market fit. When you have a product, you need to understand whether there is a true demand for your product in the market. So that could include your messaging, your angles with creatives. What are the targeted audiences that you think will have a demand, that generate a demand for this product? And lastly, the prototype of the product. The reason why I only put the actual product at the last is because if you don't have a demand, if you don't even know there's an existing demand for this specific problem or specific product that could solve this issue, you don't really have a valid business. So this is why when you're in the early phase, you just need to, double down on trying to figure it out whether there's a demand for your idea or product. And number two, here we will do only one paid ad channel. A rookie mistake I think a lot of people tend to make was trying to figure it out different, paid ad channels. However, at this stage, you only need to focus on one. And typically people like to go with Facebook ads. So that will be phase one. Only a few things you need to focus on. Now let's move on to phase two. This is where you start to gain some momentum, where you you feel like things start to work. And in terms of the revenue range, it really uh, falls between 1.5 million to 3 million. So this is a stage where you almost figured out the product market fit. You start to feel like, okay, there is a demand for this. There is a ideal customer avatar that really consistently buys your stuff. So, and then here, first thing you want to do is to improve your offers based on the customer feedback. And what I mean by that is this is the stage where you need to really drill into collecting customer feedback, reviews, and exactly understand why people buy your stuff. And then based on those reviews and feedback, you're able to continue to improve your offer. Then next, now we then only start to talk about website designs. So in the previous phase, when there's still virtually nothing going on, you don't really need to spend too much time tweaking things here and there on your website. This is this phase where you should start to do that, because conversions on your store start to make a dent in terms of the impact to your revenue. So start to think about the design CRO stuff for your website. Then at this phase, you need to at least have two paid ads channels that are working for your brand. And typically at this stage, we would like to do Facebook ads and Google ads as two working channels that should be able to consistently generate good, profitable returns for your brand. And and then that also parlays into the next point, which is you need good creatives in order to support those two paid channels. So definitely don't be afraid to invest in good creatives, because as you probably know, like, creative is really the game here in paid ads nowadays. So yeah, definitely be willing to spend a few hundreds of dollars or even $1,000 here and there in good creatives. And lastly, SEO. So at this stage, I think to some of the brands, it's still a bit early to invest in SEO. However, it's a long-term play. And I think the earlier you're able to have spare resources or capital to invest in SEO, the better off you will be over the long term. Then let's move on to phase three. This is where you will be doing $3 to $10 million per year. And now, we really start to have a well-running and serious business. Things start to pick up, and you are probably at this point looking to scale your store. So what are some of the things that you need to focus on at this stage? Number one, we need to make sure the website, the offers are all super dialed in. This is the stage where you cannot leave any margin of errors in terms of the website and the offers. And next is probably at this point, you already kind of get a sense of what are some of the most popular and best-selling items on your page. So 1 to 2 hero products that you kind of already have in mind. And number three, start to look for diversification. In the previous two phases, we only talked about you want to focus on only 1 or 2 paid channels. But now at this stage, as you want to scale, because now you have a good foundation, it's time to look for diversification. So what are some of the options? Number one is definitely Amazon. A lot of the e-commerce brands, always consider Amazon as a great way to bring in additional revenue. And so this is really a stage where you start to consider that. And number two is retail. So I think depending on, the nature of the products, probably for some brands, it doesn't really make sense to go into retail at this stage. However, for some others, for example, beverages, it does make sense for them to go into retail. Then number three, affiliate network. I haven't seen a ton of, e-commerce channels or creators talk about this, but this is super powerful. This is actually a great lever that could really pull a business from only doing 3 million per year but all the way to 10, 15 million just simply by joining a strong and powerful affiliate network. So definitely don't sleep on affiliate networks. They are super helpful in terms of bringing in very strong second or third like stream of revenues. Then at this point, let's talk about the paid ad side of things. So at least now you have two paid ad channels that are working. Now this is also a stage where you should look for a third one. And obviously I will have a bias here. I always think for at this stage, brand needs to start to figure out TikTok. Whether that is TikTok organic or TikTok paid ads, at this stage you need to start to validate a third acquisition channel. Then lastly, SEO. As we kind of briefly touch on in the previous phase where you kind of wanted to start to think about SEO, this is the phase where you need to really take things more seriously. Invest real capital and resources, effort into SEO. Now, let's talk about the last phase. This is where really, you're able to become that bigger player in the arena, start to make some damage in the industry. That's where you start to do 10 to 25 million dollars per year. This is also a most crucial. So besides just from 0 to 1.5 million, this is also the second most important phase, in my opinion, because this is really the pivotal point where you transition to become a really big brand. So what are some of the things that you need to focus on here? So definitely product line expansion. This is really a natural next step once you start to figure it out what are some of the best selling items on your store and what are some of the adjacent verticals or similar types of products that you could start to offer. This is really, product launching new products start to make sense. And number two is build a community. So I think in terms of conventional marketing and business development, building a community is never really a priority in the past. However, that's no longer the case. If you look at where social media is heading toward, you can see like a lot of the brands, a lot of the creators, a lot of these people that are making impact in the world all have communities surrounding them. So as a brand, you also need to do that. So whether that is through a Discord or Facebook groups, you need to start to build a community around your fans. So this is really a retention play that I'll be able to help you to always gain that customer loyalties around your brand. And number three is at this point, you need to have at least 4 social media channels that are working for your brand. So we need to add one additional, whether that is, so the ones that we haven't really touched on are YouTube, Snapchat, or Pinterest, both organic or paid. So 4 channels that start to work profitably for your brand at this level. Then SEO, we have been talking about SEO for the past 2 previous phases, and really now is a must. You need to have SEO dialed in because now we're talking about long-term play. We're talking about consistency. SEO is always, this is only SEO is the only kind of timeless way that you can consistently generate traffic, whether, if it is a article or a blog that was published even 3 years ago. But if you could work out SEO, that could always be on the top search results on Google for popular keywords. So it doesn't matter whether that was created or written 3 or 4 years ago, it will always be there and consistently brings you organic traffic. Then lastly, I think retail at this point definitely makes sense for most of the brands. So yeah, start to look for that retail option, whether that is partnering with Walmart, Whole Foods, and stuff like that, going to supermarkets so that you can be able to capture also physical store presence. So that basically wraps up our discussion around these, different phases. What are some of the things that you need to focus on and that are required in order to see success from that 0 to 1? So hopefully you found this helpful, specifically for e-commerce brands owners and beginner entrepreneurs. I hope this gives you a blueprint or a playbook that you could, utilize to clarify what are some of the things that you need to do at each step of the way and anticipate what you need to do for the next phase. So drop a like or leave a comment about what you think of this. So what are some of the things that you think I didn't really touch on, or what are some of the things that ring really true to you in your experience? And don't forget to check out other videos that I've done on TikTok ads, TikTok creatives, and other similar video content. Catch you guys in the next one.